Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back. We didn't even try that.
Hello.
Welcome back to Effing with the Ineffable. Oh my gosh, I was going to tell you, the first reading, do you read the daily mass readings ever?
Sometimes.
Not
today.
The first mass reading today said the word ineffable.
Oh, wow.
I should find it real quick. Here, let me
You
read
should
it.
find it real quick.
But yeah, we did match shirts today. He was wearing that shirt, and I was like, well, I have this tie-dyed shirt, which is pretty faded now.
We actually made them at the same time last year.
I think maybe.
I'm pretty sure.
I think this one might be an older. This is an older one.
They've got the same.
No, this
colors.
is an older one.
Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
This one I made. I don't know, some other time.
Anyway, today's session is going to be a companion piece to the one we had last time about
the Google Autocomplete interview for Catholics.
Right, which is basically when Jesus was walking down the road with his disciples, and he was saying, "And who do people say that I am? Who does Google think that I may be?"
Yeah.
And that's so. Who does Google think the Catholics may be? And today we're going to take a look at who does Google think that libertarians may be.
Which is going to be, I don't know, who gets a worse reputation? Catholics or libertarians?
I can tell you from having done the lookup, I'm pretty sure it was, yeah.
So this time my dad did all the legwork and I did
There was nothing in the Google Catholic about why is the Catholic Church the whore of Babylon, was there? Was there anything?
Well, I don't know. There was stuff about like scandal in like the.
Oh yeah.
But
you didn't talk about that.
Not in the Google autocomplete questions, but in the like main objections to Catholicism, the one we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like one of the major ones is like the Catholic Church is so full of scandal.
It's a human institution.
Yeah.
We only want divine people in ours. Well,
here's the thing about libertarianism.
Keep wanting in one hand.
The thing about libertarianism is, my daughter said that the other day to somebody. I was like, don't say that to somebody right when we meet them. They're going to think we're weird. Anyway, the thing about libertarianism is it's very much a human institution. In fact, it kind of sucks. I don't even really like, we're both libertarian, and that's something that is important to both of us, I think. But I don't really like talking about it because it's just so, like, I just hate talking about politics.
It's true with any institution is that the more organized it is, the less likely it is to have degrees of freedom. And so even libertarianism, which is supposedly devoted to optimizing freedom, the fact that they're organized makes them troublesome. That's why I only like I don't like organized religion or organized politics. That's why I'm a Catholic and
libertarian
and an anarchist.
The thing about libertarianism also that I wanted to mention is my dad did print off the Libertarian Party platform, but I wanted to mention at least I am not a member of the Libertarian Party because I think the Libertarian Party sucks. There's a lot of stuff. Do you know when this was last updated? Because I read through the whole platform a few years ago.
This was style changes were made on November 30th, 2018. It was adopted in convention July 2018.
So I've probably read this version. But anyway, just putting it out there that I am not really in agreement with the Libertarian Party platform. I'm a libertarian by philosophy, so like it's the same thing with being like a conservative who's not a Republican or a liberal who's not a Democrat, kind of. The only difference is it's the same word.
Most of the basics are true, but the details of how they want to operate in politics ends up becoming a problem.
Yeah, the Libertarian Party is just not good. Anyway, I'm going back to the very beginning. Let me read this about Ineffable real quick. Okay, so this is from 2 Corinthians 12. It says, "Brothers and sisters, I must boast, not that it is profitable, But I will go on to visions and revelations of the Lord. I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago, whether in body or out of the body, I do not know, God knows, was caught up to the third heaven. And I know that this man, whether in body or out of body, I do not know, God knows, was caught up into paradise and heard ineffable things, which no one may utter.
Oh my.
I was like, that's pretty good for our... Anyway, and then he goes on. See, this is why I said, can you film here without getting distracted by the birds?
Without noticing the cardinal that's on my...
Is that really a cardinal?
It's a little baby cardinal.
All right. We're going to try to not be distracted by the birds.
He landed on my my collards. Those are my collards.
You have a huge pile of them.
Speaking of mass readings, last week was the mustard seed. There was the mustard seed. And that's about 3 colored plants right there. And they're massive, but the seeds are almost microscopic. So it's interesting that the kingdom of heaven can come from something so small, but if God blesses it, it takes off.
Fair. All right, let's go. Libertarian questions.
All right, libertarian questions. Google autocorrect. So you
and
put
like,
in...
I'm going to answer this from my perspective, I guess.
Right.
I'm not going to answer it from like the Libertarian Party platform, although I guess if we need to consult it, we have it.
We can look it up and say, okay, this is what the powers that be
say
in a party that says there should be no powers that be.
Yeah.
The power should be in the people. So anyway.
I saw a great, so today's actually Juneteenth. So happy
Juneteenth.
Happy
Juneteenth to everyone.
That's actually a really good holiday. We were saying
it's a great holiday.
As much as we kind of don't like the idea of federal holidays, like Juneteenth is probably a good one. But I did see on the Babylon Bee, they said, like, Libertarian Party won't stop until every day of the year is like a federal holiday, because we don't want the government to ever be in session. So
that's true.
It's kind of true. Like, it'd be nice if every day was a federal holiday.
You don't have to lock up your silver when the Congress is not in session.
Yep.
Otherwise, the thieves are active.
All right, so let's get into it.
All right, so now to reiterate how this process goes, you go on to Google and you type in "who libertarians," and so the first question that comes up is, who are they? Who are libertarians? Who do you think libertarians are?
Well, you and I are libertarians.
Yeah.
I mean, libertarians, once again, it's kind of hard because there's the Libertarian Party and then there's the libertarian philosophy. It's the same word for both things. But libertarians are generally people who subscribe to a libertarian philosophy, which is a philosophy that emphasizes personal freedom and liberty and decreases the role of the government in general. It is hard to generalize about libertarianism because it's not something that's as dogmatic as like the Catholic Church, which is a little bit easier to answer questions about, I would say. I don't know. What would you say libertarians are?
Who are libertarians? Anyone can be a libertarian.
Everyone should be.
Everyone who believes that personal freedom is more important than a lot of the other things that often animates politics these days. For example, personal freedom would be more, for a libertarian, personal freedom would be more important than matters of equity, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, equality under the law
is what we want.
That is personal freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
That means that you're not being segregated against or prejudiced against in any way. You're being treated equally under the law, and that's what we want. That basically.
I'll put it this way real quick. Austin Peterson, who's one of my favorite libertarians, who, by the way, is no longer part of the Libertarian Party because the Libertarian Party sucks. But he is like a true.
Really, I didn't know that he.
Yeah, he ran for
president a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he did run for president on the Libertarian ticket, but he
or at least Was he actually?
Yeah, he was running for, he wasn't the Libertarian
'Cause
candidate.
Peterson did. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
he was,
Yeah.
but he was in the primaries, is that what you call it?
Mhm.
I'm so out of the political realm, but this is the way that he describes libertarianism. He says, as a libertarian, you are fiscally conservative, meaning you don't want the government to spend a lot of money, but socially, anything you want, as long as you don't impose your beliefs on anyone else. So fiscally conservative, because like you would think of a Republican as being typically fiscally conservative, socially conservative, and a Democrat as being fiscally liberal and socially liberal, right? I mean, to generalize.
Yeah.
A libertarian is going to be fiscally conservative, even more so than a Republican. Socially, anything you want, as long as you don't impose your beliefs on anyone else. So there are libertarians who are pro-abortion, and there's libertarians who are anti-abortion. But I think almost all libertarians, well, that's kind of a bad example, because that is something that libertarians have disagreement on. But most of the time people would say, do what you want, but it shouldn't be against the law.
Whose freedoms are being infringed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like gun ownership. You can be a libertarian who doesn't want to personally own guns at all and is against gun ownership. And you can be a libertarian who's like all about the guns. There's lots of them. But you don't want any law regulating gun ownership, basically, because you don't want to tell other people what to do. You want to leave people to be free to make their own choices. So
consenting adults can do whatever they want.
Yeah, same with like gay marriage. Like we would be anti any law that would restrict gay marriage, because if two adults are consenting to a contract between them, which is really what a marriage is in the eyes of the law, they should be allowed to do so.
And it's covenant in the eyes of the church.
Yeah.
Okay, so who are they? I think we've answered that.
Okay.
Who do libertarians vote for?
My personal, I mean, it's
Who
like.
Who did you vote for? Do you feel comfortable
for the presidency?
Sharing that? Yeah.
I voted for Donald Trump in 2020 because I felt like he was the most libertarian candidate. Now, is he libertarian? No. But I didn't feel like any of the other, I didn't feel like Jo Jorgensen, that's her name, right?
Oh, yeah.
She was the libertarian candidate in 2020. I didn't feel like she was very libertarian. I also am I'm a libertarian who believes that the unborn have a right to life as well. So for me to think that somebody is a libertarian candidate, a large factor of that is guaranteeing the right to life for the unborn. So Donald Trump was the only major candidate.
Well, you're a libertarian and you're a Catholic, so that
but my
informs your sensitivities.
But
too.
my political Austin Peterson is a secular atheist libertarian who is pro-life because he believes that the unborn have a right to life.
Uh-huh.
And it's the same thing. You don't have to be a religious person to believe that abortion is an infringement on the rights of another person. And I'm the same way. I believe all of our rights stem from my religious belief in God in a way, because I do believe that our rights come from the fact that we are made in the image and likeness of God.
They're God-given rights.
Therefore, we are like and I do think it's actually hard to justify individual rights from a totally secular point of view. You can do it. I just think that a lot of those arguments are a little weak. Argue in the comments if you disagree, which I'm sure if you're a libertarian watching this, you might. But so I voted for Donald Trump. I personally try to vote for the most libertarian candidate based on several things, based on just the general, like, what is their view of the role of government? Do they want to make the government smaller? Do they want to make it larger? I think Donald Trump actually did a pretty good job of trying to repeal legislation and make the government smaller in some ways. He also was bad in a lot of ways. He like wanted Obamacare. He didn't do enough, I think, for abortion and that kind of stuff, although he did repeal the Mexico City policy and all that kind of stuff. So anyway,
he was more libertarian than Joe Biden for sure. I guess I voted for Donald Trump. I did end up kind of holding my nose and voting. I was tempted to not vote whatsoever. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if we even have that discussion. Did we have that discussion on here?
I don't know. I mean, we had talked about it a lot between the two of us.
Yeah, is it even morally good to vote?
Participate in the system.
Participation in the system at all at this point is basically saying, okay, which do I think are going to be better leaders, the Crips or the Bloods? Where they're all a bunch of thieving murderers.
Yeah.
Can you vote for any of them in good conscience? I'm not sure. I'm still not sure, but I did.
But you also have to think, like, if I don't participate, I'm still gonna live in the US and I'm still gonna be subject to whoever's in charge. Like, that's the crappy thing about this. Libertarianism is very much an idealistic philosophy.
Yeah, it's very principled.
And which is good. I don't think you should just be like, well, this is reality, so let's give people free healthcare and stuff. Like, I think that's a bad argument.
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah. And but I do think, like, at the end of the day, I'm going to be subject to whoever is the president, because that's the current system we have. Now, I'm going to try to make incremental changes to make that decision matter less. But as it stands, like, I am subject to the whims of Joe Biden, and I didn't want to have no say in that. So that's, yeah. But I think libertarians vote for Republicans, libertarians vote for Democrats, and libertarians vote for libertarians, and they vote for all kinds of other parties.
It's like that bumper sticker yesterday. Don't blame me, I voted for Mo Days.
Yeah. I think that, like, the who you vote for is a personal thing, but most of the time libertarians are making it based on a principled choice, not necessarily just I'm going to check this person because they're the part of the party that I like, which I do think Democrats and Republicans do a lot in my personal experience of talking to Democrats and Republicans. So, all right, next.
So the next part of the question, which is very similar, who do libertarians take votes from? Which is probably more to the point. When you're taking a two-party system and you're assuming that the only thing that can happen is one of the two parties is going to be victorious, anytime that you have a third-party candidate, they're looked at not as being a legitimate voice in the process, but as being a spoiler for either one side or the other. And so that's a question. Who do libertarians take votes from? I assume both sides.
Both sides.
Libertarians who have objections to the infringements and impingements on personal freedoms that are represented by either side are going to not vote for those people. And hopefully they vote for libertarians as much as possible, people who uphold that principle.
Yeah, that philosophy.
So they're not taking votes from anywhere. They're casting votes for a principle.
Yeah, I reject the question.
And if you don't like that they're casting votes for a principle other than yours, well, that's your problem, I guess. That's, American freedom. We can vote for whoever we want. If I believe that, the Communist Party is the best for the country, or that best represents things, then I would vote for them. I'd vote for the dude who wears the boot on his head. What was that guy's name?
I don't know.
Promised
he's got some crazy
a pony for everyone.
I hate this question because every year both the Republicans and the Democrats use it as a bullying tactic to say you have to vote for us, because if you don't, you're basically you're wasting your vote, or you're giving a vote to the other side or whatever. And it's like, well, if you want me to vote for you, convince me to vote for you on the platform that you're running on and your principles. Don't make me vote for you.
If you don't vote for Hillary, you're
tactic.
deplorable. If you don't vote for Biden, you're not black enough.
Yeah.
If you don't vote for Trump, then you must.
You're letting the communists win.
Then you're a socialist tool.
Yeah.
You know that those are all. I guess those are all arguments, but those are arguments that are predicated upon there just being two parties and two viewpoints that can be involved in American politics, and that shouldn't be the case. That's too narrow. I really think we need to have more of a system like they have in like Israel, where there's like
a parliamentary
6 or 7 different parties, you know, and there needs to be coalitions between parties and a lot of compromises and negotiations in order to make decisions about the government. I think that would number one slow the federal government down, because everything would get bogged down in committee,
which is a good thing.
That's a great thing. Yeah. That's a great thing, and it would also allow a lot of disparate voices that right now are just not even taken seriously.
Yeah.
Because if you don't come out as Democratic or Republican, and if you don't get a Democratic or Republican endorsement, you're not taken seriously in politics.
And even my friend, who is very anti-libertarian, she is very liberal, is like, I wish we had more parties. I wish we had more of a European style system, because she is a Democrat who is pro-life. And she's like, there's no one in the Democrat Party who represents my point of view.
Christian Democrats.
And I wish that there were somebody who would represent my point of view. And like right now, until we get rid of this idea of taking votes away from somebody, like the Democrats and Republicans are the only people worth voting for, then we're still going to be stuck in this crappy two-party system. I don't think any political system is great, because they're all entirely human-made institutions, but we could do better, I think.
And they're getting better all the time. You know, institutions are improving, and I do believe that there's been great progress. You look at the past 100 years, you know, some people say, oh, the world has gone to heck in the past 100 years. No, it hasn't. The world has, at least materially, I think in terms of human nature, there's, you know, it's a snail's pace of evolution in terms of human nature. But socially, materially, I think we're living at the best time ever to be alive in the human race. You know, poor people in America live better than kings did 100 years ago.
And poor people all over the world. Like, Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, and that book, Factfulness, that Factfulness book, that's a really good book if you want to actually hear about the good things that happen that never get reported. Like, we basically close to eliminated world poverty in the last 50 years. Because, like, we have so much more prosperity and so much more distribution of wealth across the world that, like, never gets talked about, because, of course, the super rich in America and, you know, in first world countries are getting richer, but that doesn't mean that everyone else is getting poorer. So, anyway.
I ask, there's a young lady we know who's 5 years old, and I was asked, we always make a joke about, because we were eating buttered toast, and so I said, well, now, what do you think the poorer people are eating today? She said, well, they're probably eating buttered toast too. And it's like, yeah, you're right. So, and then I asked her, now, how do you think people get poor? And we had a conversation about that a while ago, and she said, because they're fools.
I was not there for that. That's funny.
You were not there for that. But I said, yeah, I think sadly that's true. The fool and his money are soon parted. And you can give them a lot of money, but if they don't know how to manage wealth, they just never will be able to keep it. And so
we were talking about that yesterday.
That's a good basic idea. People are fool. If you're
Yeah.
not able to keep your money, you're a fool. If your money's important to you, if your money's not important to you, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't apply.
At least in the U.S., I think that's largely true. I think that there's other places in the world, like North Korea, where you can be extremely wise and
Right,
still be just oppressed.
You
out
just
of
never
all.
get an opportunity
Yeah.
to do anything.
As Jordan Peterson says, it's hard. Like if you have one thing, like $1, like you can make something of that. But if you're starting at zero, it's really hard to go from zero to anything. And yeah, he talks about that. Yeah, we were listening to the Fiddler on the Roof soundtrack yesterday, and he's talking about if I were a rich man. And my daughter was asking, like, what does wealthy mean? And like, so we were talking about rich and wealthy and all that stuff. And she's like, we're not poor. I was like, no, we don't have to worry about like where our food is gonna come from. Like, so we're all right.
I think almost anybody who's got a reasonable intelligence and skill level in America, unless they're in an oppressive social situation, there's no reason for anybody to necessarily go hungry. There's food banks out there that if you can drive up.
Yeah.
Heck,
Well, we talked about this weeks ago. There's people who are desperate to hire people right now.
Yeah.
Like McDonald's will pay you just to interview with them.
Yeah.
Because they want to hire. Like
there's millions of unfilled jobs
yeah.
right now that are clamoring for employees.
And Ben Shapiro always says the 3 things you have to do to not be permanently poor in the U.S. are graduate high school, hold a job, and wait till you are married to have kids. Yeah. And if you do those 3 things, you statistically will not be poor in the U.S. All right, we got to get through these questions. Sorry,
all right,
I keep going on.
All right, so that was the WHO. What libertarians believe, stand for, actually believe?
So I think we kind of covered this in the first one. Like
they believe that personal freedom is the kind of the ultimate good. And that things that infringe on that are not good.
People should be allowed to make their own decisions about governing their life.
Yeah.
For good or for poor. And some people are going to suffer from the bad consequences. I always tell my kids, sad choices have sad consequences. If you are in a true libertarian system and you make a lot of bad choices, you're going to have a lot of bad consequences, and there's not going to be that social safety net to help you. But you also are not going to be restrained from being able to succeed if you want to do so. And that's really what we want. All right, next.
What do libertarians want?
We want freedom, and we want it now. I mean, that's a very similar.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do libertarians think about war?
It depends on the libertarian philosophy, but in general, most libertarians say we don't want to get involved in any war unless we are being attacked, right? That's why the porcupine is the libertarian animal, because porcupines will never attack something. They will only defend themselves. And I think almost all libertarians feel the same way. They don't want to get involved in foreign wars. That's why a lot of libertarians have huge problems with the Republican Party, because they see the Republican Party as being too pro-war. And yeah, we don't want to get involved in the politics of other places. We want to just focus on ourselves for the most part. Yeah.
Libertarians, now this is from some kind of standard libertarian creed. Foreign policy, libertarians seek a United States at peace with the world. They feel that the U.S. relies too heavily on military might in foreign policy. Our country has been actively waging wars in the Middle East. This left our military tired. Thousands dead, thousands wounded physically and mentally. We've gotten involved in nation building. Even if we had genuinely good intentions, that has backfired. No matter how sophisticated our military is and no matter how much money we spend, nation building is far more complicated than we originally thought, and is really the responsibility of the citizens of that nation.
Yeah. It's not our job to impose our beliefs on other people. Just like it's not our job to impose our beliefs on other citizens of the United States, it's
Right.
not our job to impose democracy or freedom or any other ideas on any other country.
Right.
If those citizens want those things, like I struggle with this personally because I have a huge soft spot for North Korea. I have a lot of Korean friends, and like Korea is such a bad situation. I don't know how those people can rise up and help people, but like I don't necessarily know if our involvement would be a net good, because a lot of times we get involved in things and then we feel responsible for going in there and creating a government, and when we leave it just creates a vacuum, and like there's other consequences just besides like, do we help someone or do we not? Like there's a lot of factors at play.
Yeah.
And I think that
the analogy I like to use is it's like the foster care system here in America. You know, we say, people are not treating their kids well. Governments are not treating their citizens well. We want to go in. We want to say, okay, because you're abusing your citizens, we're going to take control, and we're going to be your foster parent. Well, wow, what a
yeah, sometimes that's not a good thing.
What a boondoggle that is.
Yeah.
And then what it says here is, additionally, it may likely create more terrorists than it quells. Imagine if China had a military base in Montana, or Russia had a military base in Texas. How would Americans feel about that? We would likely feel insulted, impressed, and mad. Some Americans
oppressed.
would, yeah. Oh.
You said impressed.
Oh,
insulted, oppressed,
and mad. Some Americans would likely seek to actively oppose those bases, and the escalation would continue. That's what we've seen in the Middle East with our involvement there. Libertarians believe, again, as always said, war is justified only in defense. We're opposed to a draft. If a war is just and necessary, Americans will volunteer to fight it.
As we can see right now. We have a huge military and we don't have an active draft.
Right.
So
we believe that a draft enforced by law is no different from slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Libertarians believe that American foreign policy should focus more heavily on developing communications among peoples, finding peaceful resolutions to disagreements. We believe in maintaining a military so that we can defend ourselves if we are attacked. And we believe that part of that is ensuring that our troops are not so war-weary as they have been in recent years.
That's a good summary, I think.
Yeah, it's a pretty good summary. Hits on everything. What do libertarians believe about taxes?
It's theft.
Taxes, yeah. Taxes are theft.
Taxes are theft because it's basically taking something that doesn't belong to you at the point of a gun.
Involuntarily, yeah.
That's what taxes are.
Taking somebody else's money against their will. That's called theft.
I think there are legitimate ways to raise revenue in a government to pay for like I'm a minarchist, so I do believe that things like court systems and the police are probably a good idea to have. And I do think that like we could legitimately raise funds for those things through things like lotteries, through things like, you know, people are always like, who's gonna build the roads? That's like the most libertarian meme of all time, like, because there's plenty of...
We'll get to that.
Okay, all right. There's plenty of like toll roads and like like a gas...
Who built the roads before there was government?
A gas tax is essentially a use tax for the roads, right? If you're paying gas, like you could put a small tax on gas and that money could go to pay for the roads, and then that money is like only being paid by people who are using that service.
Right.
It's
a charge for use. So,
yeah. So
the more you use it, the more you should be charged.
There are legitimate ways.
Which would go along with the gas consumption.
There are legitimate ways to raise money in a libertarian system, but
unless you develop a steam car.
Income is not something that we should tax. Property is not something we should tax. Those things are not justified, I think.
Yeah. Here's the lowdown. When you pay taxes, do you do so voluntarily or because you're forced to? If you don't pay taxes, what will happen? Will you be fined, harassed, jailed? The Libertarian Party is fundamentally opposed to the use of force to coerce people into doing anything.
Yeah.
We believe it is inherently wrong and should have no role in a civilized society. We think that the government forcing people to pay taxes is inherently wrong. Libertarians advocate for voluntary exchange, where people are free to make their choices about what they want to do with their lives, their time, their bodies, their livelihood, and their dollars. So if you believe that museums are awesome, take your money and go spend it on a museum. Why should the government take the money, pay a bunch of bureaucrats to decide what should be done with that money, and then have a trickle of that money go into a museum? If you like a museum, get together with some like-minded folks and make a museum.
And there's a lot of people who do that. Mount Vernon, one of my favorite places in the US, is completely privately owned. They don't take a cent of federal dollars. It's owned by the Mount Vernon's Ladies Association, who's been around since like the early 1800s, when they bought mid 1800s, when they bought the Mount Vernon estate, and they were like, we want to preserve this as the house that George Washington had, and it's privately owned. And guess what? Tons of people pay to go visit Mount Vernon because it's awesome. It's the same even with the Smithsonian. There's the whole in the Museum of Natural History, there's the whole like Koch wing of the like KOCH wing of the Natural History Museum, because it's privately funded by some, or at least, you know, was given a huge grant or something by those people, and like that, people who value those things will pay for them, and that's a good thing. Like there are tons of examples of that. All right.
If you like PBS, if you like NPR, if you like what are some different things
libraries
that the government does? Yeah, libraries, all the different. If you like Department of Social Services, you know, if you want to run a charity, run a charity. But the government shouldn't be involved in that.
Yeah.
If you want to run a hospital, run a hospital. Okay.
Schools.
Yeah.
Education.
Totally.
There should not be public schools. There should be private schools.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, why libertarians? Number one, why libertarians are trash.
All right, yeah, we didn't have quite.
You said libertarians.
Okay, we didn't have quite that much hate for Catholics. One of the top ones wasn't why Catholics are trash. Okay, why libertarians are trash? Well, a lot of people.
Because they support defunding almost everyone's pet projects.
This is a twofold point, I think. First of all, a lot of people think libertarians are trash because they are brainwashed into this socialist ideology where they think if you're not using the government to steal from people and give it to other people to create equity, then you're not charitable, you're not kind, whatever it is. Like there's this weird idea that forcing people to give money, forcing equity is a good thing.
Yeah.
If you believe that, you're going to think that libertarians are trash. I think it's trash to steal from people what's rightfully theirs. We believe as libertarians you have a right to your property. I think it's trash to steal from somebody and give it to somebody else.
And it comes down to a basic conception of, do you trust that other people are reasonable, kind-hearted, philanthropic, good people, or do you trust that people are basically selfish and won't do anything to help other people? Is that the history of the world, or is the history of the world that people come together in increasingly kind and gentle ways to make the world better for other people? That's the question, is what is human nature, and what is the best way to optimize human nature? And people who are so-called liberal, progressive, believe that other people need to be told what to do, and they need to be forced to be generous.
I actually think
they need to be forced to love, forced love is not love.
Yeah.
It is compliance.
Yeah.
It removes the dignity of being charitable to other people. If Joe Biden says, hey, I'm going to take $20 and I'm going to give it to that homeless dude over there on the corner. Okay, how does that ennoble me or that homeless dude? If I have an interaction with the homeless dude and I say, buddy, you look like you're falling on hard times. Here's $20. Please make some good choices. Get yourself together. Take care of yourself. That ennobles me. That ennobles him. When the government's involved, it takes all the nobility out of it. There's nothing noble or dignified about that. It removes any kind of virtue from the whole process.
I think there's also an insidious view, like for Democrats and Republicans, but I think especially for anybody who's like of this socialist mindset, that, and this is like a really sick idea, but it's so pervasive, and when you start noticing it, you'll notice it everywhere, that as your congressperson, as your president, as whatever, or as your enlightened socialist thinker, I know better than you how you should live. That's really what it comes down to.
Your woke spokesperson?
I mean, the socialist and the woke ideology truly believes, like, take whatever it is, Black people, women, people of color, whatever you want to say of the day, you can't do it on your own. You are unable to make choices that would help you to succeed. So I'll come in and rescue you and be your rescuer and help you succeed. That's a really like a sick thing, but like that is so pervasive.
I will force these rich people to share their wealth with you so that you can experience a little bit of wealth in this world.
Yeah, because you can't do it on your own. So unless I force somebody to help you, you cannot help yourself. The other point I wanted to make really quick about why some other people might think libertarians are trash is because libertarians can be really annoying. Libertarians can't, like, we are the good libertarians are principled people, but libertarians can also be like the 20-year-old males who are just really annoying, who are like
alt-right.
That's not libertarianism though.
No.
But like I'm saying, like there are libertarians who are just like, yeah, I value freedom of speech, so I'm gonna say the most offensive things possible because like that's truly like there is a sect of libertarianism, especially online, like on Reddit and that kind of stuff. The trolls who are just out there to be like, I can say anything because freedom of speech, so I'm going to say it. Like, I think that we can take it too far and be annoying about things.
Oh, I know I can.
I can too. And so, like, I think that that's another reason why people think libertarians are trash.
Yeah. Well, and I think the main reason is because people they disagree with other people, and they want to defund a lot of. They want to cut down on government, and a lot of people have pet projects that they want their government doing for them.
Yeah.
And if you threaten that, then they feel like you're trash. Why do libertarians? Second one. Why do libertarians have no friends?
It's the same thing. Like it's the same. We have no friends because it is alienating being a libertarian because I am a principled person and I'm not afraid to say what my principles are. And the cool thing in the culture now is to be like a woke liberal person, especially depending on where you live.
Well, the cool thing in the mainstream culture, that's out here in the sticks, that's there's kind of a reaction against that. There's a reactance of like, I'm tired of being told that I'm deplorable. I'm proud to be deplorable.
Yeah.
Screw you.
Well, okay, so like
Don't tell me how I should be.
So I'm coming from the mindset of somebody who lived in DC for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, if you are in DC, even the conservatives are liberal. Like, truly, even
right.
the conservatives are liberal. So, like, if you are a libertarian, if you're against Obamacare, if you're against like any sort of like social welfare system, if you're against the idea of like public schools, you are definitely looked down on as like, who are you to like hate on these poor people and like not give these people a chance, which is once again the idea that those people need my help or they can't do it alone. But they're like, alternatively, if you go to places like where I went a couple weeks ago in rural Ohio, if you have any criticisms of Trump, you're also looked on as like, you're anti-American. Like, if you don't like the mainstream
love it or leave it.
Yeah, if you don't like the mainstream the mainstream Republican Party platform, you're seen as like, well, then you must be a socialist, or like you don't don't like the steel workers,
you're
or
a
like
closet pinko.
like whatever it is. Like so I do feel like you get hate from both of the, since a majority of the people.
That's why we don't have any friends. I thought it was my bad breath.
I do think like a majority of the people in the US are either, tacit Republicans or tacit Democrats, because they don't really ever give it any thought.
Right.
And
they just assume that that's the way it is. That's the way it's always going to have to be.
And so if you go against that, you're going to be looked on as like, why are you a freak? Why are you like going against what I like? So
right, or going against the only thing that the familiar, comfortable boiling water that we find ourselves in now.
We're too Democrat for the Republicans, and we're too Republican for the Democrats.
Yeah.
All right, next.
Why libertarians never win, don't win.
That, I think, is almost entirely to blame on two things. First of all, the Libertarian Party sucks. It's run really badly. We had a great chance to win in 2016 when it was Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and nobody really liked either of those candidates.
Yeah, and there was a viable third option.
And the Libertarian Party could have put somebody up who was a good, strong candidate to run against, but they picked Gary Johnson, and he sucks. Like, yeah. I'm sorry, but Gary Johnson sucks. He's not a real libertarian.
He's too wishy-washy.
He wasn't good at debating. He wasn't good at answering questions. He wasn't good at the whole PR thing, which unfortunately is a part of American politics. And
you need to be able to present your ideas in a way that makes them attractive to other people. You can't just, you just can't go out and dryly say things and expect people to get passionate about it.
Or act like you don't know what you're talking about, because then people aren't going to take you seriously and think that if you don't know what you're talking about, then libertarians always don't know what they're talking about.
What was the question about about Syria?
What do you think about the situation in Aleppo? And he said, what's Aleppo?
What's Aleppo?
And it's like, yeah, you're allowed to have like brain farts. Clearly everyone ignores Joe Biden's brain farts 100 times a day.
Oh my gosh.
But
that's really
severe. When you are like the candidate for your party, you have to act like you are. Can we pause really quick?
Yeah.
Okay, we had a quick interruption. I don't remember what I was in the middle of saying, but basically the Libertarian Party doesn't win because the Libertarian Party sucks, and also because we are really entrenched in this two-party system where everybody thinks that the Republicans or the Democrats are inevitably going to win, so I might as well vote for one of them. And I think that until that like idea changes, and I don't know how to make that idea change unless we really get a serious candidate in a third party. And the Libertarian Party has, as of right now, has not been able to put forward somebody who is a serious candidate. So, yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to?
No, that's basically it. We just don't have enough guns and enough hands to win yet.
Yeah.
Just you wait.
We have to change the culture. We have to change the culture before we change the political system. So.
Why libertarians don't vote? We talked about that. can't ignore that both choices are unethical.
Yeah, like some people just don't
Quote,
like any of the
quote
candidates.
unquote both.
Yeah, exactly.
As though there's
both.
only two. Why libertarians don't debate? Often because they're not invited. They just don't have enough
social clout.
Yeah, they just don't have enough political oomph. They don't have enough guns and enough hands.
I think there are technically rules about like if you get 5% in like a certain number of state primaries, you're able to vote on the national stage. But I don't think that the libertarian candidate has ever like reached the minimum requirements.
Threshold. Yeah. Where are libertarians? Okay, so now we're moving on from why to where. Where are libertarians on the political spectrum / compass?
We took the political compass test a while ago, if you want to look on there. But basically, there's a x-axis and a y-axis politically. The x is going from, what is it? It's authoritarian. No. Right and left, right? Left to right. And then the y-axis is going from authoritarian to libertarian. So libertarians are going to be on the bottom of that 4-part compass. Go watch our political compass. That was like one of the first episodes we made. That was a long time ago. It's a good one though. So that will show you where we are. I think we're both more libertarian right. But there's also libertarian left people who are more of like, I would say, lean toward like the anarchist side. So anyway, yeah, go check that out if you're interested.
Mm-hmm. Where do libertarians stand on the issues? Well, we've already talked about that.
Depends on the issue and it depends on the libertarian, yeah.
Where do libertarians live?
There is a project right now called the Free State Project, which is for New Hampshire. There are a lot of libertarians trying to make New Hampshire a libertarian state. Like they're all moving up there, trying to take it over and become a libertarian state. New Hampshire
to get enough
manpower,
predominance, yeah,
to have a libertarian state.
Huh.
I like that idea.
Except I think New Hampshire.
Yeah, exactly. I think that New Hampshire's a good choice because I think their state motto is like live free or die.
Live free or die, yeah.
And it's also like small. It's kind of out of the way. Like a lot of people don't really like. Not a lot of people get there. People don't care. They're like, go do whatever you want. I think Alaska would also be a good choice, although it's really out of the way.
Yes.
But I mean, I am a libertarian. I've lived in Michigan. I've lived in Wisconsin. I've lived in Iowa. I've lived in Maryland. I've lived in North Carolina. So I've lived all over the place. And there are libertarians everywhere. I wouldn't say there's like a great, besides maybe New Hampshire, where they do have Pork Fest, like Porcupine Fest every year, which I've heard is really cool. My friend goes every year. Aside from there, I wouldn't say there's any great conglomeration of like libertarians. I mean, like everybody says Texas is a very like conservative state. They like guns, that kind of stuff. Anywhere where there's like that kind of ideology, I'd say there's probably less libertarians who want to live in California. There's more libertarians who want to live in those like freer states. So, yeah, that's a long answer to that
You'd
question.
think that libertarianism would appeal to people who still have kind of that rebel spirit.
Yeah.
The Confederate spirit, not in support of slavery, but in support of don't tread on us, let us be, live free or die, keep the government out of our business.
At least the federal government, more state governments rather than federal government.
So wherever that kind of spirit exists, and I think there's a percentage of people who are twisted that way in every region.
Yeah.
So I said, where do they live? Next door in the basement.
That could be true.
So look next door in the basement, and you might find a libertarian.
Yeah, that weird guy who lives down the street from you is either a creeper or a libertarian.
He may
Maybe
be
both.
He may be a sex offender or a libertarian or both. Who knows? It's a big tent. Where do libertarians stand on gun control?
We don't want
I
any.
said we believe everybody should aim their guns well. That's, control your gun.
We believe that the Constitution guarantees us a right to bear arms. So I would say, once again, there's always going to be variation among libertarians, but I would say libertarians in general are against gun control. Most libertarians want pretty much unfettered free access to almost any weapon that you could want. When you get into like nukes, that's when you start getting like
But
arguments.
you need to use them defensively always.
Of course.
It needs to be used in defense. But we need to be able to provide for our own defense. If we are responsible for our own defense, then we need to have the freedom to prepare for that defense, which is to arm ourselves, you know.
The reason we have the right to bear arms is to defend ourselves against the government. And that's what libertarians want. We don't want to defend ourselves against, because libertarians in general trust other people to be, not, we're wary of other people. We don't want to just like leave our house open to whoever wants to come and take stuff. But we trust other people to not come and attack us in general. So it's not really like I want to have a gun to defend against my normal neighbors. I want to have a gun to defend against criminal people who are just bad actors and the government.
And we believe that people should be able to work things out pretty peacefully by having good contracts, specified contracts that describe what we expect from each other. We should be able to work things out without having to draw down on each other.
Yeah.
So where do we stand on gun control?
Don't control them.
I need to control my gun, but you don't need to control my gun.
And I think like when we talk,
but thanks.
Libertarians talk all the time about personal freedoms, but what gets talked about a lot less is personal responsibility, which whenever you have a freedom, you have a responsibility not only to defend that freedom, but to use it well. It's true. The more freedom you have, the more responsibility you have. And that's what a lot of people are afraid of. They don't want to, a lot of people, especially young people, don't want to be responsible for their own life, because then you have to take accountability for your actions and you do suffer the consequences of your actions. And people don't like that. People don't want to suffer the consequences of their actions.
People like to be victims.
They do. Because it's, as much as it sucks to be a victim, it's easier than saying, the bad things in my life are a result of my choices.
Oh no, I don't want to be a failure. I'd rather be a victim.
So I do think that like part of the gun control thing is like, yeah, we want people to have the freedom to use guns in the way they see fit, but we also trust people to be responsible with their guns.
And if you're not failing, you're probably not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're not pushing yourself to your limit. You're not finding out what your limits are.
That's what Denzel said in that graduation speech that you said.
That was good, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
And I that challenged me because I'm somebody who is afraid to step out and fail. Like I
tend to be pretty lazy and to kind of even if I have ambitions, I tend to thwart them and just say, it sounds like maybe it'd be a good thing to do, but I'd rather just eat watermelon and look out the window.
All right.
Okay, finally.
This is the last question?
This is the last question
All
I
right.
wrote down. Where do libertarians stand on healthcare?
So healthcare.
We're in favor of taking care of your health.
Yeah. You should have the freedom to have whatever.
You should take care of your health.
Yes.
You are responsible for your health, just as you are responsible for your gun. Take care of it. Use it wisely. Make it work well for your life. Make it be something that's a positive in your life. but don't expect other people to take care of it for you.
I think like what people mean by that question is like health insurance usually is what we're talking about, right?
Or is healthcare a right?
Human right. But like the healthcare isn't really like the issue usually. It's usually like health insurance, like paying for that care is the issue
Right.
politically.
Yeah.
So like when it comes to health insurance, you should have the freedom to choose to have health insurance or not, or to have whatever kind of health insurance you want, but you should also have the responsibility of paying for that, of making your own choices as far as that goes. It has nothing to do with the government. Healthcare and health insurance.
You should be able to call the tune as long as you can pay the fiddler.
Yeah.
Want to know what they said in here?
Sure.
Okay. Libertarians believe that healthcare prices would decrease and quality and availability of healthcare would increase if providers were freed from government meddling and control. Virtually every person wants access to quality healthcare at an affordable price. Libertarians think the best way to achieve this is by removing government interference and enabling free markets. Government inappropriately controls our healthcare in many ways. Government and a handful of insurance companies have a virtual monopoly as payers. Because of this, they make most of the decisions about what kinds of healthcare are going to be available. Government regulates where, when, and who may open new healthcare facilities. Government agencies greatly slow development of and access to new medicines, devices, and technologies that may improve the quality of care and reduce the cost of care. Currently, the healthcare industry is virtually monopolized by the government and a handful of insurance companies. They hold the checkbook and wield it for their own benefit.
I'll say this, like, I think anytime you have a monopoly, it's a bad thing. Now, monopolies will occasionally rise out as a result of the free market, but most of the time, if that monopoly is bad, there will be competition that crops up to try to counter that in a true free market system. A lot of times if there is a monopoly, there's a reason, a governmental, regulatory, oppressive reason for that monopoly. I think things like healthcare, that's especially evident when there's things like laws saying that you can't have health insurance across state lines and that kind of stuff. Like, there's just so much regulation of healthcare that the system that we have is really crappy as a result. Here's a great example of this that is very relevant to my life right now. I am buying a house and I am looking to get cable internet at this house, okay? The cable internet provider in my area, there's one cable internet provider in my area, and it sucks. And I don't want to pay them for cable internet. I don't like it. But there is a lot of regulation in regards to like internet service providers and cable companies and that kind of stuff, and that creates a monopoly, and as a result it sucks. They can charge a lot for a service that's not very good. We used to live somewhere else where there was free competition among at least a couple of service providers for cable, and we paid less and we had better options. So anyway, monopolies are usually really bad. So that's my my monologue about monopolies.
Okay.
I don't know.
Monopolies and healthcare is a monopoly right now, and the government is involved in, the most important part of healthcare is nutrition. Government is highly involved in the, development and distribution of foods, medicines. The Food and Drug Administration is a huge thing that is well intended to protect consumers from nastiness, but ends up becoming just another bureaucratic tangle that ends up impinging on people's ability to do the things they need to do. The whole war on drugs is a huge problem. Where did the opiate crisis develop? from a proliferation of people prescribing opiate medications, because at some point somebody decided pain was going to become another indicator of health and wellness, that if you're having pain, that you're not healthy. That's not my experience. Life is pain, princess. Get used to it. People who are trying to take away your pain are giving you something that is going to take away degrees of freedom in your life. So don't buy that. Don't buy that. You're bound to have some pain. If you have no pain, you have no gain.
Well,
You're not trying hard enough. You're not pushing yourself enough. People who want to sit on the sofa and eat watermelon and look out the window are going to develop some aches and pains, just bed sores they'll get if they don't keep moving. Best way to treat chronic pain is to get out and move. Keep yourself active. Motion is lotion, as they say in the chronic pain treatment. Get out and move. Don't take opiate medications that basically numb you and keep you from being able to experience pain. Pain's important information. And if you try to ignore your pain and deny your pain, you're going to get in trouble.
well, and I was going to say,
It's staurophobia, as they call it, the fear of the cross, fear of bearing your cross. We all have a cross to bear, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and we need to suck it up and bear that.
well, and I think like another way to put it is like, it's not that we think that like pain is great and that it's awesome, but pain is an indication that something's wrong. And if you go to the doctor and you say,
No, it's not.
If you go to the doctor and say, I have pain in my foot, and they say, okay, here, take this opiate for it so that you don't feel the pain, that's not treating the cause.
Right.
There might be a cause.
Treating a symptom.
There might be a cause that you can treat. Like, hey, my foot hurts right now because I stepped on a bee this week and got stung by a bee, which is true.
So get over it.
If I went to the doctor and they gave me an opiate for it, that's not going to help actually heal the bee sting in my foot. Mm-hmm. It's just going to make me forget about the pain. Pain is an indication.
And why would a doctor do that? A doctor in good conscience give you something like that?
Well, I think part of it is because doctors are often in our system pressed for time, and it's easier if they hear, I have a pain in my foot, it's a lot easier to say, okay, here's something for your pain, rather than saying, okay, when did the pain start? What does it feel like? Let me examine your foot. Like, it takes 2 seconds to write a prescription for an opiate.
Right.
It takes longer to, especially when it's not so obvious as like, so many people go to the doctor and say, I have really bad period cramps. Can we please do something about this? They say, here, take birth control. That will stop your period cramps. Well, yeah, it'll stop the period cramps, but if you have severe endometriosis, if you have cysts in your ovary, if you have all sorts of issues underlying that are causing the pain, you're actually never going to be treating the cause, which means that it could fester and get worse over time, but you're just not going to feel it because you're masking the pain. Pain is an indication that something is wrong in your body. Now, sometimes that something wrong is like you're getting old, like, or
you just worked out. You just worked out and you strained your muscles. It's a normal reaction to a healthy process. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not a problem.
But you can treat.
It's an indication that you've strained your body. Good for you. Good for you. Do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I think we're arguing.
I think we got way off. We got way off the topic. Libertarians are pro pain. No, and I don't. Libertarians are probably all over the map on this.
Clearly, we are. So, all right. We should.
I want real pain from my friends and champagne from my enemies.
I like that.
No, the opposite. I want champagne for my friends and real pain for my enemies. That's an old saying. I didn't make that up.
All right. We should wrap this up.
Yes, because we're ranting now.
If you have any other questions about libertarianism, drop them in the comments.
Yeah, and look, you can always look up on the Libertarian Party platform. That's not a terrible place to find out information.
It's probably better than
They will
Google.
try to get you to join the party.
It's probably better than just Googling it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get a lot of like Reddit answers that aren't going to be very accurate.
Because when you Google it, you're going to get a lot of libertarians are trash because they hate children.
They suck.
They don't want to help pay for children.
They hate education.
They hate
healthcare.
healthcare.
They hate people who are hurt by gun violence.
Yeah, we are pro-violence.
Yep. All right. Thanks
All
for
right.
tuning in, everyone. And if you have any other topic suggestions, leave them below. We'll see you later.
All right. Take care.